Hello again. Let me ask you a question. How much is a dinosaur fossil worth to you? Let's say particularly Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not just a T-Rex, the most complete T-Rex found at its time. How much would you pay for that? Not a replica, not a cheap toy you get at a gift shop or something like that, not a replica of an actual fossil, the actual fossil. How much would that be worth to you? Such a problem has occurred back in the 90s when a paleontologist went into a rancher's land who, under good intentions, found a T-Rex, was excited about it, but due to the greed of the rancher, and then later the greed of others, had a fight over it that later caused the loss of this fossil from this paleontologist, put the paleontologist in prison, and was put on auction for millions of dollars. Many of you may already know what I'm talking about, and that is a Tyrannosaurus Rex named Sue. At the time was one of the most complete fossil Tyrannosaurs found to date. I don't know if we found any more past that. I know there's a second one, Stan, later found by the same paleontologist. The second most complete. But you can read all about it in Peter Larson and Kirsten Dunnan's book, Rex Appeal. Peter Larson is the paleontologist who ran his own private organization of digging up fossils. He's real passionate about the subject. A lot of people have been kind of skeptical of, they thought he was sort of just a poacher, just picking up dinosaurs and just selling them to places like Japan and stuff like that. But then some paleontologists actually got to see his work, got to see his company, and say, hey, he's actually pretty good, he's pretty legit. May not be right in everything, but not everyone's perfect. Here's a book on Peter Larson's account of what he has experienced through tragic hardship and everything that he went through in trying to get the fossil that he has actually paid the rancher to get off the land and own. It was only $5,000, but that was a funny thing. The rancher, whose land he got the T-Rex from, got a phone call from a man representing a millionaire to paying $1 million for if he can get the fossil back. So that's when the problem occurred, and it didn't just stop there. Since the rancher's land was on Indian territory, and the people over there found out, they started claiming ownership. But then that part of the land was also leased to the United States government, so the government was also claiming that. So there's this major long court battles, and at the same time, the government was investigating Peter Larson's company, the Black Hills Institute, I believe it was called, and it basically was trying to get a witch hunt on him just to see if these guys are picking up fossils illegally and selling them and all that. This book right here gives the account, Peter Larson's own account. It's nicely illustrated. Let's see if I can find a few. Wonderful, nice little illustrations. Also photographs of events taken. When this whole thing baffled, the feds raided the Black Hills Institute and took it, the fossil, and it's been stuck there, not fully prepared yet. And there was talks in the story about pyrite developing on the bones, which is not a good thing on them. You have to try and, prepare that to where that will not take out break down the fossil over time. But, it's stuck in a room, that's not right for fossils while this court thing was happening. Some of you may already know the story. You could jump ahead. I guess it won't be too much spoilers for those who already know, but in the end, the fossil was lost and was auctioned off at Sotheby's for over $8 million. Fortunately, to a museum. If you want to see the real T-Rex Sue that was involved in this case, you can see the actual fossil, not a replica, the actual fossil on display at the Fields Museum in Chicago. I got to see it at the San Nova Museum of Oklahoma Natural History, a replica of that. I was traveling around the country a few years back. I went to the museum many times. Very fascinating and everything. But suppose you're skeptical of Larson's own account. Let's just say, well, okay, yeah, he's telling his side of the story, but maybe he's embellishing without him knowing of it, or maybe he is just to get our sympathy for him, to say that the rancher was a crook. This is where you get this book. Tyrannosaurus Sue by Steve Pfeiffer. It's the same story. This from a guy investigating the same event and coming up with the same story. If there's any differences, embellishments, or something, I couldn't point out when I read these years ago. But I would suggest get both of these books. This one's not so illustrated, this one is. But get both of these books, read them back to back, and you will pretty much get the same story. I remember I've been hearing about this in the news since I was a kid, and I was kind of shocked by it. I mean, why would anyone try and, should something like this be in a museum? Paleontologists, when it comes to the value of a fossil, they kind of see the value of the information that they can get from it. Paleontology is not a luxurious job. They always have to try and ask for grants and everything to, it takes time and money to not only get the fossils, to prepare them and put on display, to publish papers and such. It's pretty disgusting to find people getting greedy to get something like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And probably the only reason why you would ever get anything of value of that, because everyone knows what T-Rex is. That he's one of the most popular dinosaurs around. It's a very sad story. Peter Larson did not get too much of a happy ending on his side. But it kind of turned all right in. He was eventually, after the court battles, they put him in prison for a couple years, but he's back up and running, still doing what he does and still loving it. But yes, pick up these books. Very good read. Rex Appeal by Peter Larson and Kristen Donna and Steve Pfeiffer's Tyrannosaurus Sue. Two stories. One story from two different sources, but it's good to read them back to back to get a good, accurate picture of the events that happened. Thank you very much.